Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports. We're going to talk about the big boxing card this weekend, and who better to do that than the guy who is in more Hall of Fames than Floyd Mayweather has cars. My friend Al Bernstein, the analyst for Showtime Boxing. How are you, Al?
I'm good. And, it's becoming more and more expensive to buy my way into those Hall of Fames. It is not, it's a costly operation, Kevin.
Yeah, when you're as good as you are, everybody wants you in the Hall of Fame, and so you got to buy a new suit and kind of get the airfare and all that going.
That's funny.
Well, I should mention before we get going, of course, you're in the International Boxing Hall of Fame and the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. But recently you were elected and will be inducted into the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. That's exciting because, like you, I'm a longtime Las Vegas resident, and both you and I have a great sense of community in Las Vegas. And for me, that's very special. I have to say that's going to be a really great thing on May 11th to have that induction.
I'm very proud of you, very happy for you. Let's get to it. Showtime, which has been kicking butt for over a year now,
We've had a good run
with some great boxing cards. They have 4 fights on Saturday, 3 on TV. The Frampton Donaire fight will be streamed. So let's just kind of go down these. And what I wanted to do, Al, is just sort of talk about each fight, break them down a little bit, what we think may happen, and what the significance of the fight is. So let's start with the main event that will be on Showtime Championship Boxing, the notorious Adrien Broner, 33-3 with 24 knockouts. He's going up against another Las Vegan, a guy that I wrote a story about the other day, and I called him the nicest guy in boxing. Jessie Vargas. He's 28-2. With 10 knockouts. I know Broner had a little trouble making the weight. He dropped the shorts. He was 144-2. It's a catch weight fight. He came in at 144, but I thought he looked pretty good. How do you like this fight? Do you think Jessie can deal with Broner's quickness?
Yeah, listen, Jessie Vargas is a slight betting favorite in a lot of places. It's either even or he's a slight betting favorite. So, Jessie Vargas has a couple of things in this fight that will benefit him. One, he's taller than Broner. He's 4 inches taller, and Broner has traditionally had trouble with fighters that are taller than him. He's functioned much better when they're his height or less. And it is true, Broner's hand speed is very, very good. But we also know Broner doesn't throw many punches. He averages 39 punches per round in his last 5 fights, according to show stats. Jessie Vargas averages about 52. He's not a wildly active fighter, and sometimes Jessie Vargas lets the pace slow a little more than he would like. But clearly, the height and reach for Vargas is a big factor, and I think that's something that Broner has to get past.
What impact Broner had been trained his entire career, amateur pro, by Mike Stafford. He now goes to Kevin Cunningham, who I think is really one of the best trainers in boxing and doesn't get a lot of credit. And the thing about Kevin, and I did an interview with him the other day, he demands discipline from his guys, and he demands they work on the fundamentals. If there is anything that Broner has lacked, it's been discipline and fundamentals. Do you think Kevin Cunningham can play a role in this fight?
Yeah, we at the fighter meeting today with them, Cunningham was very specific. He said when he came to me, he said we needed structure. We needed to make sure that he took care of business. And he said I sat him down and said, if you're going to come here, you're going to do it the way we do it. And he went, and in South Florida, he went to Cunningham's new, relatively new training facility and lived there, along with Gervonta Davis, who we're going to talk about probably in a second or two. And Broner said, for whatever it's worth, although we have heard this before, that he's much more focused, and he thinks that the focus is what he lacked mostly before. And Kevin Cunningham echoed that by saying, look, we all know that Adrien Broner in spurts has shown us that he can be excellent. It's a matter of putting it together over the course of full rounds and a full fight.
Yeah, the thing that I question about what Broner said there is the fact that he was fighting Mikey Garcia his last outing, one of the best fighters in the world. And that fight was a very heavily hyped fight. And I think, while Jessie is a terrific fighter, I don't think Jessie has the reputation that Mikey Garcia has. And if you're going to get up for one fight as opposed to the other, I think you would get up for Mikey Garcia as opposed to Jessie Vargas. So, to me, it's like Broner's words. He has to prove it to me. I have to see.
Right. It's pretty easy to think there was a little spin in there. I mean, that's That's not a big stretch. And you're right. The Garcia fight was so important, and you're facing one of the best top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And here's the thing with Jessie Vargas that's interesting, and you were apt in your description of him. He is a well-respected and well-liked fighter. And by the way, in Las Vegas, for folks that don't know, and you and I know it, has made himself, and of course he grew up there, he is a very, very popular figure in that community. The thing about Jessie Vargas is, for him, the world is at his fingertips if he wins this fight.
Yep.
Because all the top welterweights, the Thurmans, the Spences, the Danny Garcias, they would be happy to fight Jessie Vargas. They all feel like, well, he's a guy maybe I can beat, and if he brings something with him to that fight. So it's a very important fight for Vargas. And if Broner underestimates that in any way, shape, or form, he can certainly lose it.
I've been going back and forth on who I like in this fight. Now I know you're not going to make a pick on it. I think Broner's hand speed is going to be a problem for Jessie, and I think that's going to be a big problem. But Broner has had difficulty fighting bigger guys, and he hasn't been as good at welterweight.
Right.
After thinking about it a long time, I'm going to go with Jessie Vargas by decision, and I think it's a fine line Jessie has to walk.
Right.
If he can go in there and he can establish his jab and keep Broner at range and not let Broner get inside and throw one of those big hooks at him, I think Jessie will have some success in the fight.
You hit on it. The left hook is the best power punch that Broner has, and I don't know. I fully expect this fight to go the distance, and you suggested a decision because Jessie Vargas has only knocked out one of his last 11 opponents. Broner has an excellent chin. Jessie Vargas is not a guy that gets knocked out.
He went 12 rounds with Manny Pacquiao.
Exactly, and Tim Bradley, and he doesn't get knocked out. And Broner, up at these higher weight classes, has not shown the ability to knock people out. So you could easily see this fight going the distance. And either picking Steve Farhad was in the back of our van as we were driving back from the fighter media, saying he thinks either way it's going to be a split decision. He just feels it, and that is certainly possible.
Well, let's move down. In the next fight, I think we're going to talk about. We will have a knockout in this fight for the WBA super featherweight title. Gervonta Davis, 19-0 with 18 knockouts against Jesus Cuellar, 28-2 with 21. So you're talking 39 knockouts, in 49 fights. So a pretty high knockout percentage there. And I want to begin. You mentioned Gervonta Davis, trained now by Kevin Cunningham. That's a switch for him. Davis, I thought when he beat Pedraza at the beginning of 17, that was a launch of a superstar in boxing. I mean, he had looked like a really good prospect. Then he came through with that fight. I thought, boy, this guy is going to be something else. And then his last fight on the Mayweather McGregor undercard, he misses weight and he kind of fooled around in the fight. And I mean, to me, he looked like Adrien Broner light. Guy that can take his job serious. What's the sense you get from Gervonta right now?
Well, the irony is, so he goes down to Florida again with Kevin Cunningham to train beside Adrien Broner, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
So presumably they both found religion at the same time, right? And Gervonta Davis there's no question he's very talented. But the immaturity that he had bubbled to the surface. He too, at the fighter meetings today, was saying that he realized there were issues, and he realized that he let people down, didn't perform well. Getting away from Baltimore, where there were a lot of issues and a lot of distractions for him, he felt was the right thing to do. Now, Cuellar is an interesting guy in that he has been not very active, only fighting once in the last 2 years, and he's coming up in weight. One of the mysteries of this, to be perfectly candid, is how they can call it any kind of title fight when Cuellar has never fought at this weight before.
And he lost his last fight at featherweight.
Yes. So, with all due respect, it could be a very good fight, but to call it a title fight seems ludicrous to me, which would be the very first time that's ever happened in boxing. We know that.
Never happened before.
Never. But the interesting thing about this fight is, Cuellar, now he lost to Abner Mares in his last fight, in a fight in which Abner Mares fought extremely well.
Right.
It was one of Mares' best efforts in the last 3 years. And Cuellar would definitely have and be, there's a big hand speed edge for Davis. But here's the thing about Cuellar. He's a dogged competitor who has tremendous power in his right hook and a good straight left hand, and he comes at you every second of every round. So if Davis were to give the same kind of effort he gave against Fonseca in the last fight, he would lose. Now, the presumption, though, is that Davis won't be that flat, but I think it could be an interesting fight.
I know Cuellar likes to attack, and to me, when you're fighting somebody like Tank Davis, that becomes a problem. I also think Cuellar is vulnerable to the body, from what I have seen now. I don't know if you've noticed that. And I think Tank has a real good combination where he hooks to the body and comes back up and hooks to the head. I would not be surprised if Tank knocks him out with a body shot. Hits him with something, hurts him to the body, and maybe finishes him with something to the head. That would be kind of the way I expect this one to end.
And Davis has scored a number of knockdowns to the body, which is your point, and he's got that great double right hook. And so, yes, because Cuellar is moving up in weight, you could see that scenario happening, and the hand speed difference is big. We'll see. This is a fight that honestly, I could see it being filled with action, or you could see maybe Davis dominating.
Yeah. I see this is one that could go either way. The third fight that's going to be on the broadcast, it's going to open up, and shockingly enough, we've never seen fights for titles that don't belong, but here we got another one, WBC interim middleweight championship, and I think Gennady Golovkin is fighting, and he is the WBC middleweight champion, but somehow we have an interim championship coming up. Mauricio Sulaiman, buddy, I love you, but I need you to stop with these interim title fights. Jermall Charlo, 26-0. He has had 20 knockouts. He's fighting Hugo Centeno Jr., 26-1 with 14. I really like both Charlo brothers. Al, what's your take in this fight?
The Centeno to prove that he can. Charlo, when he fought Julian, who was knocked out by Blow, he was losing the first 3 rounds badly before they had a clash. He made the fight a no decision. Centeno really looks like an underdog, and probably is. And he's got a very good look, and he believes, and so does his trainer, Eric Brown, they believe that they can win by guile, that Charlo will be over anxious and wanting to outdo his brother Jermall in terms of getting a knockout even earlier, and that they can take it to that. Whether that is the case, we'll see. Jermall Charlo has moved up to middleweight from 154, and he is a very talented fighter, as you alluded to. He and his brother are very talented, and he's very powerful. We don't know how powerful at 160 yet, even though he scored a knockout in a fight that was not against upper echelon fighter. So it'll be.
All right, we're having a little.
See if can in fact knock him out.
Al, I'm having a little trouble with the recording here, so I'm going to call you back, and we'll see if we can get it going and figure this up.
Pick it up and then you can edit it.
3, 2, 1. Al, we broke up as you were talking about Jermall Charlo. You noted that he had a knockout at middleweight in a not big time fight. How do you expect him to perform at middleweight? And let me ask you this to add on to it. He's fighting for the interim WBC title, so that would put him potentially in line for Gennady Golovkin or potentially down the road Canelo Alvarez, depending on who won their rematch when Canelo's done with his suspension. How do you think Charlo fits in with those kind of guys should he get past Hugo?
Yeah, I think he wants a dramatic win. Centeno is not considered among the top 5 or 6 middleweights in the world, certainly, and so he believes, Charlo does, that impressive win is what will put him into the sweepstakes. In addition to the fact any kind of win, I guess, puts him there because of what the ruling is. But he wants a very definitive win. With only one middleweight fight under his belt, it's a little tricky to know exactly where Jermall Charlo fits in. He's got all the talent in the world. At 154, he was a monstrous puncher. And at 160, we're not quite sure where his power fits in. The other issue for Jermall Charlo, and it's a real thorny one, is the politics of boxing doesn't benefit him. You know, both Golovkin and Canelo and Danny
Jacobs now.
There's a lot of issues making a fight for him with any of those people. And the middleweight division isn't deep enough to where there are big fights with almost anyone below that. Well, Billy Joe Saunders, who's got a championship, and maybe that fight is makeable. Although if I was going for a world championship, I got to be honest with you. I know people think, oh, yeah, let's go get Billy Joe Saunders. I'm not sure that's the best thing for anybody. And let's remember that Jermall Charlo, when he fought Austin Trout a few fights ago, a stylish lefty, had some problems.
Yes, he did.
So that's not the easiest either. But I'm sure he'd be happy to take that fight.
I was not sold on Billy Joe until his fight against David Lemieux, and then I thought he boxed beautifully in that fight, and he proved me wrong. I questioned how good he really was, but I think that he is a legit guy, and like you say, he's a left-hander that's going to cause people some trouble. So he's not. But you look at that middleweight division where while it's not deep, and that was proven by the trouble Tom Loeffler had getting an opponent for Golovkin
very good
after
point.
Alvarez fell out. At the very top, we have some really good fighters with Jacobs, Golovkin, Alvarez, and now Charlo. So it's top heavy, but whether they get in the ring with each other, that's boxing, and we shall see.
Yeah, that's the problem, and for Jermall Charlo, that it's a little bit of an issue. His brother doesn't have that problem. Most of the 154 pounders are available to him, including Jarrett Hurd, who of course had that fight of the year candidate against Arislandi Lara last week or 2 weeks ago. That was, amazing.
Big fan of Jarrett Hurd. And quickly, I appreciate your time, Al. Let's finish on this. Showtime is streaming a fight from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Carl Frampton, a terrific fighter and a terrific guy, is fighting on Nonito Donaire. To me, this is a tough spot for Nonito because Carl Frampton is a featherweight in his prime. I think, wants to get back in that mix with the top guys. And Donaire at 35, 36 years old, I'm not sure how much he has left. Just quickly, how do you break down that fight and what do you expect from Carl Frampton?
Yeah, your assessment's accurate. Carl Frampton is at a more comfortable weight. It's a vital fight for him. He's trying to get a win for him, could put him easily in against the winner of Abner Mares and Leo Santa Cruz. Of course, he fought Santa Cruz twice before. They're fighting on June 9th. And so it's a vital fight for Frampton. So there's a lot at stake for him. And Donaire at 35 has said over and over again leading up to this fight, he said, I'm going to surprise people. I'm not the old guy here that has no skill sets left. And Nonito Donaire, I think, is a kind of an interesting and compelling guy for Frampton to fight right now. He's in it because we know he's skilled. We know he's a good fighter, even though he's moving up in weight. It'll be interesting to see. Again, the onus is on Donaire to show that he can hang there in this fight. And I'm glad we're streaming this because it'll be good for American fans to see that fight.
Yeah, I'm just amazed. All credit to Showtime and Steven Espinoza, what they're doing. I had Steven as my Yahoo Sports Man of the Year a few years ago because of the tremendous run that Showtime had. And this year is, started off, with the heavyweight championship situation and all that. Showtime is really doing yeoman's work. As are you, as evidenced by this long laundry list of Hall of Fames that you are in. So, Al, I know you're busy today, and I appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time. Thank you so much.
Always good to be with you, Kevin. And I think that Showtime success mirrors the success boxing is having right now.
No doubt.
In general, we've been spearheading it, certainly to be sure, but it's now a sport that I think has gained a lot of momentum, which I'm very happy about. But anyway, always good to visit with you, my friend.
All right, Al, thank you so much. That is Hall of Famer Al Bernstein. We will be back. Thanks, Al.
Take care.